Hi, I'm Kalila Reynolds and welcome to Taking Stock. We're bringing you all the latest business news and telling you how it will affect you and your money. Come on, let's get this money. First up, Prime Minister Andrew Holness is now back from China after a historic 8-day trip. But the U.S. doesn't seem to be too happy at the deepening relationship with Beijing. What does this mean for Jamaica? We'll explore. And later, the analysts weigh in on the latest stock market developments. What do they think about Sagicor Select Fund's new manufacturing and distribution index? But first, here's What's Hot, brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers, your best interest at heart. Sagicor has launched a new class of its Select Fund shares for trading on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. The Class C shares will allow Jamaicans to invest in all the companies listed on the JSE's new Manufacturing and Distribution Index. The new shares are selling at $1 each, with a reserved price of 98 cents for Sagicor employees. The company is selling up to 4 billion shares in the new fund. The offer opens on November 20 and is scheduled to close on December 4. Proven real estate investment trust's new Braemar Avenue apartments have sold out less than a week after launching. The apartments, which start at $21 million for a studio, were being pitched as middle-class housing. Jamaicans can now shop online on Amazon and pay at their nearest Western Union. The new payment option, brought to Jamaica in alliance with Bill Express, an affiliate of Western Union agent Grace Kennedy Money Services (GKMS), enables customers to shop on Amazon and pay in Jamaican dollars at Western Union locations across the country. Just select the Amazon Pay code when shopping, and Amazon will send you a code with instructions on how to pay in person at participating Western Unions. The Jamaican flag flew high outside the New York Stock Exchange on Wall Street last week as the NYSE honored the JSE's record-breaking performance. According to Bloomberg News, Jamaica was once again the top-performing stock exchange in the world last year. The JSE is also up 30% so far this year. What's Hot was brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers, your best interest at heart. And when we come back, Prime Minister Andrew Holness's historic visit to China will bring you highlights of his trip and analysis from international relations scholar Jevon Minto. This segment of Taking Stock is brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agent, insurance made easy. Welcome back to Taking Stock. Prime Minister Andrew Holness returned to Jamaica on Sunday, November 10, after an 8-day official working visit to China. It was his first official trip to the Asian country, and he had a packed agenda over that week, which saw him visit 4 major Chinese cities. Here's more. China has been exerting greater influence in developing countries in Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, including Jamaica, in recent years. Speaking at the second annual China International Import Exposition in Shanghai on November 5, Prime Minister Andrew Holness said the Chinese have already invested some $3 billion in Jamaica.
Investment by Chinese companies are major pillars of the strong relationship between our two countries. We particularly note the investment of China Harbor in a $600 million highway, improving connectivity between the north and south of Jamaica. And we note as well the investment of Jiquan Iron and Steel in our bauxite and mining sector. There are now 16 Chinese companies registered in Jamaica, investing more than $3 billion.
To put that in context, $3 billion is about 417 billion Jamaican dollars, or about half of Jamaica's national budget for 2019-20. And that's not counting another $3 billion investment earmarked for the stalled Gansu Special Economic Zone and Industrial Park, which would be the largest single investment ever in Jamaica. And the two countries are seeking even more. Prime Minister Holness says further investments are being sought.
Jamaica and China signed a memorandum of understanding for the Belt and Road Initiative.
But not everyone is welcoming China's growing influence in the region. The Americans have been watching with a keen eye. At a town hall meeting in Kingston in 2015, then U.S. President Barack Obama warned Jamaicans of the strings that may accompany Chinese investment.
And if Chinese workers are shipped in to build the road, and if you don't know exactly what the deal was with the government that led to China getting the contract, in those situations, it may not be, in fact, serving the long-term interests of the country.
And last week, the rhetoric from Washington got even stronger. Speaking at a press conference at the JDF's Up Park camp in Kingston, Commander of the U.S. Southern Command, Admiral Craig Fowler, warned Jamaica to be wary of China's campaign of disinformation in the region. It prompted the Chinese embassy in Kingston to issue this stinging rebuke. We express our strong dissatisfaction and opposition towards the defamation against China's cooperation with Jamaica and other Caribbean countries. Facts speak louder than words. Sino-Jamaica, Sino-Caribbean, and Sino-Latin American cooperation, which features equality, transparency, and mutual benefit, is conducive to regional peace, stability, and development, and will not be stopped by any force. And we're joined now by international relations scholar Javon Minto. Hi, Javon.
Hi, Kalila.
Good to have you on. And Javon is part of Young Scholars with the Inter-American Dialogue China Latin America program. He's also a member of the China, Latin America, and Caribbean Academic Network. So you're doing lots of work in this area.
I'm doing a lot of work on China.
We start calling you the resident China expert now. And you don't mind that title.
I don't mind.
You've written a paper on the topic as well.
Two papers, actually.
Two papers. Well, just give us your broad perspective, first of all, on Prime Minister Holness's visit to China.
Well, it's an important trip that the Prime Minister is doing to China. First of all, he's following in the footsteps of former Prime Ministers P.J. Patterson, Portia Simpson Miller, and Bruce Golding. So it's literally becoming a pattern that we're seeing emerging about how do you go about engaging China. The Chinese are also coming to the Caribbean at important forums and at the bilateral level. So it's something new that we're seeing in Caribbean diplomacy that we rarely see at the level of the United States and traditional partners. Think about how many times you've seen a single Caribbean leader getting an audience, exclusive audience with a U.S. president.
True.
And the reverse. So it's a new engagement that's happening between China and the Caribbean. But what we're also seeing is that there are important gaps to be filled. And each time one of these visits is realized is that financing comes with it, or the Chinese offer investments to the region. And so I guess you can call it a win-win for both sides.
Now, on that point of investments, Prime Minister Holness mentioned a dollar figure that's already been invested in Jamaica. He said 19 Chinese companies are in Jamaica, and they've invested $3 billion US dollars already. In Jamaican dollars, that's like 400 and something billion, like half of the national budget.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, and that's not even counting the Gansu Special Economic Zone project, if that does happen. What do you make of China's increasing influence in the region via all these projects?
I mean, the most important thing with these investments, it's what happened in 2008.
What was that?
The financial crisis, right? If you look at the investment stocks for Jamaica, data from the Bank of Jamaica, you'll see that it collapsed completely in the aftermath of the crisis. But since the Chinese and
what collapsed completely?
The investment stocks.
Investment stocks
Collapsed completely means that they were at very low levels, right? Since the Chinese investments, I guess it's just something that has helped to push it up back. But what literally has happened is that the FDI stock has surpassed pre-crisis levels. These are data that are open for access to anybody.
Foreign direct
investment stocks have surpassed pre-crisis levels. And it's a part of the story why Caribbean leaders love China so much, despite all the rhetoric that there's a debt trap and you should avoid Chinese investments because they're going to take over your assets. But at the domestic level, a lot of leaders are not seeing that picture. And so China for Jamaica is playing a very crucial role in terms of domestic investment, but it's also the ripple effects of what an infrastructure investment such as North-South Highway can do for a country.
And it's tangible stuff that you can see.
Exactly. It's precise, it's practical, it's different from the engagement that you get from a United States and a United Kingdom and let's say a Canada. The US, for example, doesn't lend money like the Chinese banks give money to Jamaica. So it's a very big deal, and we're expecting that the Prime Minister is coming back with more investments for infrastructure.
With some goodies.
With some goodies.
But you mentioned the United States, and they've been watching keenly, and they've also been commenting on the side. I'm sure President Trump isn't all too happy. Going back all the way to Monroe Doctrine, this is our territory, this is our region of the world. Other superpowers stay out. So what do you make of the U.S. reaction so far?
I don't know. There are some truths in it, but at the same time, Trump has been pushing for something in international development where he's looking for countries to graduate from getting international aid, right? And what that graduation means is that each time a country moves up to become a middle-income country, you get less access to concessional financing. So you have to diversify the base where you get these resources from. And so who is going to give Jamaica that money at such low interest rate, a country that's climate sensitive, that every time something happens, you literally lose so much of your domestic infrastructure, right? So you need to continue to be rebuilding and resilience. So who is going to be providing that? It's somewhat impractical to say don't engage with the Chinese, but I think something that was very important in the statement from the Army Admiral basically was that, with China, there are some inherent risks, right, in the engagement. China is really new to the Caribbean.
I was just going to ask you about that. What's the downside of accepting all this investment?
The downsides are, you can look at what's happening at Alpart, for example, or basically we don't have the capacity to monitor at China because China is big, right? And you come with all that force and just think about the pressure that it puts on the Jamaican state to robustly monitor China. And you can't say, you know what, if you don't get this done on time, you got to go. You can't say that. You can't sanction China. You can't give a soft touch because it's China. You literally need them. They're everywhere. So the downsides are that, yes, we need better investments in a NEPA, for example, to robustly monitor China and the environmental effects that comes with Chinese investments, whether in Alpart or whether what's happening around Kingston. NWC, for example, had to basically threatened to take them to court because of what was happening with infrastructure investments. So you're literally seeing that these are the spillover effects, the downsides to Chinese investments.
Issues at the Foreign Affairs building.
Exactly. So, but I guess that's why you upgrade your relationship to a strategic partnership so that you put institutions in place to sort of iron out the issues, because at this point, you have to engage better.
Right. Thanks for joining us, Javon.
No
always a welcome perspective.
My pleasure.
Okay, well, when we come back, I've got your market recap and the analysts are standing by. This segment of Taking Stock was brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agent. Insurance made easy. The market continued to rebound during the week ending Friday, November 8, as 80 stocks traded, with 42 advancing, 29 declining, and 9 trading firm. Sagicor Select Fund Financial traded the most, taking up nearly half of market volume last week, with people buying and selling 34 million shares in the company. But the stock price remained unmoved for another week to close at $1.15. Wigton Wind Farm also saw significant activity. 12 million Wigton shares traded, representing 16% of market volume. Share prices fell 3 cents to close at 94 cents. And Radio Jamaica was third among the volume leaders, with 5 million units changing hands. The stock gained 3 cents to close the week at $1.84 each. Turning to the top advancers now, Blue Power Group saw the biggest gain, its share price jumping 21% following news that it's preparing its subsidiary Lumber Depot for an IPO in coming weeks. The company closed the week at $8. Dolphin Cove was up nearly 11%, its share price rising to $10. And Epley rebounded last week, back up 10% to close at $16 a share. On the losing side now, SSL Venture Capital took the biggest price hit last week, losing 26% of its value to close on Friday at $1.19. Access Financial Services lost nearly 13%, closing at $32.39, and Medical Disposables and Supplies was down 12%, closing at $7. This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, is brought to you by Proven Wealth, Jamaica Money Market Brokers, and NCB Capital Markets. Welcome back to Taking Stock. I've got a team of analysts to examine the week in business. We're joined by investment analyst at Proven Wealth, Houghton Richards, junior research analyst at NCB Capital Markets, Gina Harriet, and Devroy Davis is back. He's a stock market analyst and co-founder of Caribbean Value Investor. Welcome back to those of you who've been here before. Welcome for the first time, Gino.
Thank you, Kalila.
All right, let's do our usual start. So what stood out for you guys on the market this week? Let's start with you, Houghton.
For me, this week, we're in the middle of earnings season, or at the start of it, really. So this week is really some of the companies releasing their financials for the last 3 months. Some of them are full years, so like NCB, for example. So it's really just to see the performance of these companies, how they've done for the past year to date, and to just get an idea of what they have in store for next year and future growth.
So what do you make of the results, especially NCB being the big one and Sagicor too?
So Sagicor, they have been doing really well to grow organically. They recently did consolidations of the Sagicor Select Fund. So now they're recognizing hotel revenue in their performance. So that is boosting their organic growth. NCB as well, they had a really good year. They're still in the consolidation part of the Clarion and the Guardian holdings. So, we're still being mindful and watching how they've grown. So they did have good growth, but I want to watch how they grow core. Wisinka did well as well for their first 3 months. So a lot of the main companies that you expect to do well, they have been showing the results, and that gives confidence in me that our stock market, the companies that are there, they're continuing to provide value back to shareholders who have invested in them so far.
Okay, Gino, what caught your eye this week?
Well, I think for me was the breakdown in the 20-year concession deal between Sagicor Financial Corporation and Scotia Life Insurance Trinidad and Tobago, as well as Scotia Life Jamaica. I think especially with the recent APO that was closed, I think on yesterday. I am
on Thursday, right?
That was closed on Thursday. I am looking. I now want to see how the investors will react to this, as well as how JMB's performance will be affected, because that based on how much Sagicor Financial Corporation said that they would have made from it, they were projecting a 50% increase in profits from both Sagicor Scotia TT as well as Scotia Jamaica, but they only got Scotia TT, which is the
smaller of the two.
Which is the smaller of the two. So it will be interesting to see how Sagicor Financial Group's profit react, as well as and how that will affect JMB's profit.
Being a significant shareholder of Sagicor. Devroy, what do you have your eye on?
A few things. For one, the early closure of JMB's APO definitely stood out. I remember the week prior, or I think 2 weeks ago, we had talked about whether or not there was sufficient liquidity in the market to actually absorb the 10 billion. And we see the response from JMB literally being that there was an overwhelming appetite for the JMB shares that they were on offer. The other thing that stood out to me was the actual growth in Wisinka's net earnings. The growth in NCB also caught my attention, as well as the downward movement in Sagicor Select Funds, despite them actually recording $960+ million in profits for the 9 months and $500+ million in profits for the 3-month period ending September. So it was very interesting that the stock actually went down. I saw something similar as well with QWY, which actually reached its all-time low of $1.16. I'll put in the full disclosure here that I actually took the opportunity to purchase some of those shares because the net asset value for QWY as at Tuesday of last week was around $1.34. So I saw a bargain. I decided to take advantage of it. But again, that of course is not an endorsement for that particular stock. But those are some of the things that caught my attention, and I'm very much looking forward to what the rest of earnings season will bring.
So Horton, Deroyd brought up Select Fund's performance, and they have a new listing now that they're coming with. But before we go to the new listing, what do you think accounts for the lack of shareholder confidence in Select Fund?
No, so I don't think it's a situation with a lack of shareholder confidence. It's a situation where Sagicor Select Fund is a liquid equity fund. So really what it was created to do was to track the performance of the financial index. So if you were to look at the NAV of the index, the NAV of the index...
The net asset value.
Net asset value, right. When I last checked it on Wednesday, it was trading, the net asset value was below the actual price of the stock. So what you could be seeing is really and truly just a market correction for the fact that the price was at a premium to the net asset value. So it may not necessarily be a situation where it's lack of consumer confidence. Could just be a natural market correction where the price should be in line with the net asset value. So it could be something of that sort versus a lack of confidence per se.
Do you agree with that, Gino?
I think Hannah made a very important point, as we have seen over the past couple of months where a lot of the stocks have been correcting themselves, because we have seen where, for instance, JSC was trading at a multiple of over 40 times, and we saw it come down from $40, coming back straight down to, I think, $19, and then going
back up to like
and then rebounding. Understand? And I think the Jamaican stock market is becoming more efficient in terms of adjusting to earnings as well as market prices, as well as expectations.
I had to ask that question because, boy, people be in my DMs. What's going on with Select Fund? All right, so Select Fund Manufacturing and Distribution Index is coming out on the 20th. What are your thoughts on it, Deroyd?
I think it's fascinating. It's interesting to see that, Sagicor actually did hint at the fact that they would be coming to market with additional shares for other indices, provided that they're able to find those. And so given that the JSE has now constructed the manufacturing and distribution index, I'm not surprised to see Select Fund creating an instrument rather to actually track that index as well. I believe from this one they're seeking to raise between $2.5 and $4 billion.
Right. Same as the last one.
Same as last one. And similar to the last one as well, they already have $1.1 billion invested. So that would be interesting to see. It would be good also to compare which one of the indices are which one of the index funds are performing better.
So have you guys had a chance to look through the numbers yet on the manufacturing and distribution?
Well, I had a chance. Based on what they have currently in their portfolio, it's already down 60 million.
Down since when? What do you mean?
Since yesterday. Since yesterday's prices, what they currently have, the Caribbean Cement, Wisynco, and all the other stocks that they currently hold in their portfolio, based on the prices that they bought those stocks at, and as at August 31st, I think that they listed it in the prospectus, and now the fund is down 60 million, which is 6.4% off which is a 6.4% loss of total value. But I expect it to rebound, especially in the medium to long term, given how well the manufacturing industry is doing, especially, and to see that their top 10 stocks in in the manufacturing index is 88% of the total portfolio, and these are all great companies that have great returns. So for Caribbean Cement, we know that they have a ROE, which is return on equity of 31%. The same thing for Wisynco, 31%. So you have Wisynco, Caribbean Cement, JP, Seprod, which are all in expansion state and all have strategy of doing more exports. So I definitely expect this index to do well because of the company's business strategies.
Okay, what do you think, Deborah?
Well, I would agree with Gio, particularly on the point of the quality of the companies that are constituent in the manufacturing and distribution index, and the weighting as well. You mentioned Wisynco, which is again one of the top 10 holdings that they have there.
It is the most heavily weighted.
Exactly. So we're looking at the fact that Wisynco is now doing, say, 30% growth year over year. If you take into consideration the fact that this last report that they put out was the first that incorporated that partnership with Jamaica producers, you're now seeing where that initiative was gave a positive return in just, less than a year in operation. So I'm bullish, I want to say, on the Select Fund manufacturing and distribution.
Houghton, you're bullish on it too?
So I agree fully that the quality of the companies that are in the manufacturing and distribution index. So if the liquid equity fund operates the way it should, I believe that there's good shareholder value in participating in the manufacturing index IPO from Select Funds. There's good shareholder value because these are companies that have shown that they plan to expand. Majority of them are focusing on the exporting market. So that shows that there's room for growth. I'm very bullish for what the Jamaican economy is providing in terms of opportunity for these companies. So I would definitely say I'm bullish on the manufacturing index and such, bullish on the IPO as well.
Okay, thanks for your perspective, guys. Always appreciated. Well, let's take our final break. Taking Stock, the Analysts was brought to you by Proven Wealth, Jamaica Money Market Brokers, and NCB Capital Markets. That's our show for this week. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and check out my other features, Money Mondays JA, Money Moves JA, and What's in It for Me. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Kalila Ray. Also, if you want to know more about Sagicor Select Fund Manufacturing and Distribution Index, that was the topic on Money Mondays JA this morning or Monday morning, so check out that last episode. And I also, if you scroll back about 2 weeks on the Money Mondays JA playlist, you'll find my breakdown of the Manufacturing and Distribution Index, my explanation of what are indices, if you're clueless. Tell a friend about taking stock. Investing is the new sexy, so let's make it cool to talk about money.